What the future holds of work in the NFTs with Alec, Kevin, and Jessica. Let's give them a round of applause for our next panel.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys for all being here. I'm really excited to basically go down the path of talking about the future of work, the future of work in Web3, specifically NFTs. So yeah, we have a pretty interesting panel. We're all from different diverse backgrounds and industries. So I'm going to pass it off to Jessica over here on my left to introduce herself and a little bit of her background.
Thank you so much, Alec, and thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you, Kevin. My name is Jessica Childress, and I'm an employment law attorney in Washington, D.C. I'm also a children's book writer, and so this is one of my children's book characters, Jurisprudence, on the screen right now. I am super interested in Web3 and all things NFTs because I do think that this world will change the future of work. As a lawyer, we always get excited when there is disruptive technology, and this is certainly that. So very interested and looking forward to telling you where I think work will change within the next 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate the introduction. My name is Kevin Logan. I started a recruitment consultancy with my business partner a couple months back. We come from the world of Web 2 in the performance marketing, creative, and just advertising space. Saw a place for us. I've been in this space for quite a long time, and just thinking big about the future of NFTs. How do we solve problems? How do we connect candidates to employers? How do we lessen the friction in the process? You know, to get the right candidates, to figure out, you know, as much as we can about candidates. So I'm really excited about things like digital identities as a way to solve some of the issues that we have between connecting those two and really diving deep with candidates so that we can figure out if they are the right fit for these roles. And so obviously within the Web3 space, oftentimes people don't even use their real names in social, so it's really tough to find where everybody's at. So yeah, just really excited to the future of NFTs and how it'll really bring things together and collapse that so that it either lessens time for the amount of time it is to find that talent or whatever the case is, but yeah.
Awesome. And I'm Alec Tavares. I'm the Director of Operations for Meta Billionaire. And I also run an agency, specifically a Web3 agency called More Than a JPEG. So I help projects with their marketing, their product development, and ultimately roadmap development, whatever they have coming up in the future. Getting them with different collaborators, whether that's merchandise or digital goods. So I do want to open it up here and just kind of have an open question for both of you guys. And where do you see the future of work in Web3, and where does that differentiate from what we've seen in Web 2?
So I'll kick it off. We all understand that now the workplace is everywhere. And if you've been in tech, you've probably had that reality for a really long time. But now our workplaces are wherever we want them to be. The difference is that now we will be having these virtual workplace experiences in the metaverse. We'll be able to reach out and shake hands with our colleagues. And there are so many amazing possibilities and so many amazing just realities that come with that. There are also risks and challenges that come with that. So in Web3, you really can be anyone that you want to be. I can be a robot. I can be, throw out something, someone, give me an avatar. An alien, yes. So I can be an alien, so that's great. But with that the anonymous nature of Web3, there's also the possibility that we can do things as humans that are unlawful, unethical, and so workplaces have to understand that the workplace being so anonymous in just this gamified way has to be regulated. And so policies will have to change to account for the anonymous nature of Web3. When we're working in workplaces that are in metaverse workplaces, we also have to have policies that are applicable to real-world workplaces. And I'll let Kevin give your perspective.
Yeah, so, in terms of the future of work in NFTs, obviously we could use, a lot of the words we use, DAOs, and obviously, a lot of the things that you mentioned today. But again, I kind of wanted to harp on, digital identities and the ability for your wallet to really just kind of explain who you are as a whole. So, really, again, thinking about how to solve a problem using actual technology from Web3 to enhance, again, the ability for employers and candidates to connect. And so I've seen some really cool apps and some really cool products that are starting to be made where you can get a real great understanding of a candidate from just their wallet, figuring out when they started buying NFTs, what NFTs have they bought, what events have they attended, what are all their socials, having their references authenticated in their wallet, having their employers authenticated in the wallet. So much of that is so difficult for a candidate to understand, like, what do I need to get the employer? What do they need to know? And then even on the employer side, what do I need to know about this candidate so that I know everything I need to know to employ this person? And so much of my role as a recruiter and a recruitment consultant is diving deep into that. And it's especially, again, within Web3, it's difficult because we use avatars, we don't use our names. And so I don't know if this is your Twitter handle, this is your Instagram, or this and that. But the reality is employers more and more are wanting to understand, to dive deeper to candidates, to make sure that it's a culture fit, to make sure you're going to work with the team. And so I'm just very excited about the future of working in NFTs from that standpoint, because it's going to actually solve a problem that we have now in the world that we inhabit in terms of employees, candidates, and the whole recruitment process.
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting to be able to look at a candidate's wallet and determine basically a character profile for who they are and who they could potentially be for you or your company or your brand. At the same time, I do think it's a little terrifying, right? Like there's an aspect of that, of losing some of that anonymity of that we have today, right? So if you have a Web 2 job, you work for Apple or Adidas or Nike, they don't necessarily know your full financial statements or what you do outside of work or what your investments are or that beach condo you might own down in Florida. But with the future of Web3 and basically wallets being completely public and maybe even accessible to an employer, they can create that profile for who you are, which is awesome, right? It's great. More data, more information means we can make better decisions. But at the same time, it's a little bit scary in my opinion.
And Alec, just to dovetail on that, I think lawyers were always the bearers of bad news, so I hate to be the Debbie Downer on the panel. With those, that's an amazing amount of data. It's just a phenomenal amount of data that we've never had access to. But as employers, there's also the obligation to maintain the sanctity of that data, the privacy of that data. And there are legal disclosures. Employers cannot ask certain questions. They can't ask about salary history. They can't ask if you're married. They can't ask if you have a disability. So with wallets and having, the potential to display your entire life and every transaction that you make in the world on your wallet within the next 5-10 years, there's inevitably going to be data that discloses a lot of personal information that employers typically in a real world setting or in a current setting would not have access to and would not be allowed to even ask. So it's important to think about that as you are asking for data from employees going forward. It's really important to consult an attorney who's going to give you the parameters of what's allowed to be disclosed. It's also important that companies are going to be phished more than they are now. So employees are going to have to understand what not to click on because they could potentially be giving their entire lives away under someone pretending to be the company.
Right, and it does go the opposite way as well, right? So someone could look into the wallet history for a company or their treasury account and what they're spending money on, why, how much is being allocated towards certain vendors or other employees, and that's all going to be made. I mean, it is public, right? So everyone else within that corporation or that company or that brand will have access to that. So that kind of levels the playing field. In Web 2, we're used to having semi-annual salary negotiations where the employer and the employee play this funny little game of I want to get paid more, I'm going to leave. The employer usually offers a little bit more money potentially, and basically the employee's left playing this cat and mouse game. And with that, nobody knows how much their peers are necessarily making, how much their managers are making, their manager's manager, the person in a whole different department or country or city, and this pretty much levels the entire playing field from that aspect, which I think is really interesting.
I'd actually like to, I should have probably parsed my ideas when I was discussing this. In this idealized world, we will own our own data, right? So we'll have the ability to give that information to who it is we want. We can take out maybe some identifying information or something that you don't want them to know. Maybe you were part of an NFT project that got rugged, or maybe you're part of something that you just don't want everybody to know. Well, in this world, you own that data. So that wallet is yours to give to whoever it is that you want. And so that's why I'm excited in those terms. Now, I definitely can see for aspects of that information being public, of course. There's definitely way too much information that can be given to an employer. And as a recruiter, of course, biases can obviously creep on in. So, we do try to eliminate biases within the process. So, again, without parsing it out too deeply, I believe there will be a process at hand at which when you distribute that wallet or when you send that wallet that information, you will have the ability to, again, you'll own that data, and you'll have the ability to really parse out what information it is that they see, the different socials that you actually want them to see. Are you a diamond hands? Or, maybe there's a social aspect that says, I'm a diamond hand, or I'm a, I started NFTs last year, but it'll give them a profile of you, at least and I'm talking again in terms of Web3. So for instance, I saw an alpha app called Charisma the other day, and that's kind of the profile that they're looking at, right? So they kind of audit your time in Web3, and then they'll say, are you a diamond hands? Do you, what is it in terms of your trading? Who in this space are you most like? What celebrity are you most like? Like, they really try to take a social aspect to it, because the reality is this is honestly what a lot of employers are wanting to understand. Like, where are candidates in social? What are they talking about? What conversations are they a part of? They really want to understand and make sure that the people coming in are a culture fit. And I think that's continuing to matter more than ever, as culture is more at the forefront of our talking points, just day-to-day lives.
For sure, and Web3 is all about culture. I heard this in a Gary Vee interview a while ago, and he was saying that the number one form of communication for humans is not necessarily talking. It's what we choose to spend our money on. That's the house that you own. That's the car you choose to buy. It's the food you eat. And it pretty much segments you into a tribe, right? People buy certain houses in certain areas for their own reason, right? They want to communicate something about themselves or their family to the world. Same thing with their cars, their clothes, even the food that they tend to eat or want to eat. And NFTs, NFTs basically do that. They put us into digital tribes of, I believe in this project, this mission, this brand, this art, so I'm going to associate myself with this digital tribe. Now, on the aspect of digital, right, and remote work, which is obviously more prevalent today than ever before with the advent of basically COVID. I'm interested to get your perspective on this, Jessica, with international work, right? Like, there might be a project that is based in Dubai, for instance, and they might have employees all over the world, maybe India, maybe the US, Canada. So where do you see some of the difficulties, or maybe what are some of the difficulties today as far as employment law and taxes, right? And I feel like a lot of this is uncharted waters, and I'd love to hear kind of what you have to share on that.
Well, I am not at all a tax expert. I will talk about some of the other just challenges with bringing in international work in general, and this applies to the real world, not just the virtual world. I mean, there are cultural differences that we all experience. There are just space realities that we all engage in. When I'm in Barcelona and getting kissed on the cheek, like that's totally fine with me. I understand that that's just the world that I'm in. In America, I think it would be very, odd for a man that I didn't know to kiss me on the cheek. So there's just the practical realities of cultural differences. There are practical realities of cultural differences. In the metaverse, if a man comes up and kisses you on the cheek in the virtual world, is that going to be considered sexual harassment? That's a question if you are working for a company where you're working with a global workforce. So I think understanding that that there are cultural differences that we have to respect, but also cultural differences that may not pass muster in certain places. I think it's really, really important to understand. And I think it's important to delve deeply into these issues before we actually we're not in the metaverse, we're at the frontier, we're at the beginning of this new world. So it's important to think about these things now before we get there, and we're all just like, what the heck is going on? What do we do? I think it's important for employers to think about how to reshape policies that may not have come into fruition in the real world, but that actually will in very nuanced ways in the metaverse.
For sure.
If I could just take it kind of back to foundation, because I know we don't have too much time yet, but just as a future of NFTs and work, I'm a content creator myself, so I'm extremely excited about the relationship between creator and fan. A big ethos of this is decentralization, is eliminating or mitigating counterparty risk. And it's beautiful to see. There's a couple of projects that I'm sure all of us know, like Royal.io or Opulus, or Sound XYZ, where it's direct. It's a direct relationship between the creator and fan, and I'm extremely excited about that to continue and to build on that aspect, because I've seen so many of my friends, creator friends, that have put out their works and their dreams and everything, only to get a small cut of that. And so it's nice to see, 85-90% of the cut of the creations going back to the creator, and again, that relationship being built between the two. And so like with a Royal.io, I own a Nas album, never thought that could be possible, but that's a direct relationship that I have with now this artist, and that might unlock my ability to have some access to some other parts of that world that I want. And so just really excited about the creator relationship, and again, the elimination of the Spotifys of the world, the Amazons of the world, and really just that peer-to-peer, which is kind of the whole point of this all.
Yeah, I was actually gonna mention that. Do you think at some point, like a record label or a publishing platform or pretty much in an agency, right? Do some of these things start to become obsolete as people can work independently? Are we going to see a rise in contract work as opposed to like traditional, typical, employment? What do you guys think?
I think IP is at the center of Web3. It's at the center of NFTs. If you've been to any of the legal panels in the other ballroom, you understand how important IP is and how we're paying more attention, more than ever, to what you're signing away. When you're an employee, you're typically assigning your rights to the company. Now, I think creators are going to actually look at those assignment of rights agreements to understand, wait, if I'm signing away my rights to this NFT, well, perhaps I'm giving away my royalty forever. I don't know that there's a way around that as an employee. You do have to, if you're creating IP for a company, you typically do have to assign your rights over. But it's something that employers and employees have to think about. It's a value proposition, because never in the state of our world have creators been able to have a perpetual royalty to their property in a way that we're able to actually track on the blockchain.
Well said. Just to go to that. Actually, I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. So I was listening to you.
No, I do think that's really interesting. You know, let's say if you're an Apple employee, right, in 10, 20 years, and instead of having an employee badge or an employee ID, that is identified by an NFT. And whenever you're working on a different project or product, you have to build this in a Web3 integrated platform. So now that IP would be owned by Apple literally forever. You know, there are plenty of stories, especially in tech, of, you know, one person starting at one company, maybe getting some different ideas, and then enabling either a competitor or something totally different. And I wonder if this puts a challenge to that, if the IP, you know, is controlled to that degree.
This is a really long conversation, but an important one nonetheless. Companies are going to have to be more diligent about making sure that the IP that employees are bringing to the company actually belongs to the employee on this immutable blockchain, because there are lots of lawsuits that will follow if you are transferring IP that doesn't actually belong to the person who says it belongs to. And so companies are going to be probably paying a lot of attention, especially if you're an NFT company. You have to do an IP clearance check to make sure that the employee owns the rights to what they are giving to you, perhaps. Or the employee is actually saying to the company, no, company, this is my IP. I'm not giving it to you. So if there is something that I create that's based on my ape, that's actually mine. I'm not giving it to you, and I'm going to put this in writing. Those issues are very complicated, and right now it's hard to say, like, the smart contracts can't necessarily account for these nuances. So you are going to have off-chain transactions that will continue to protect your IP, or that will protect your IP, but these are things that companies really have to pay close attention to, because they're going to have more relevance in this world than they've ever had before.
And now I remember. So to the original point, yes, I actually do hope that Spotify doesn't necessarily go anywhere. I think there's a place for Spotify, right? There will be people that want to use those type of services. Like when I think of decentralization, I think of my parents. Like there's so much that they're not going to be willing to inhabit in this space. There's going to need to be the Spotifys and the Amazons. But if there's an outlet for people that want to get out of the system, right? That you don't have to use Spotify, that there's Sound XYZ where you can put it out there, and there's an audience that can actually find you, and it's not that you feel you're forced to have to use these services to take these, for lack of a better word, shitty fees, right. or you know, you don't get exactly IP, or you don't get royalties in perpetuity, or whatever the case is. You know, it's awesome that we have that outlet, that the technology is being built, that foundation is being laid for, again, creators to monetize their IP, the things that they work their asses on every day, day in, day out, for only, you know, C-suite executives to take a lion's share of that. Makes little sense for people that want to opt out of that system. So to that end, they will likely stay around, but not in any way, shape, or form of what they look like now.
Right. I think Web3 might change Web2 in that aspect, right? Independent creators and artists are going to be getting a majority of this money now directly, and they're going to have that relationship with their fans and their communities in ways we've never seen. So I do think it does pose challenges to the Spotifys and the Apples of the world, but I have a feeling we'll see them, you know, integrate before, you know, they let it, you know, impact their business.
If I could add one Debbie Downer footnote.
Here we go.
And not a Debbie Downer footnote, but more of a cautionary tale. Creators have to also ensure that they have not already assigned their rights to someone else. And that's, again, that has applications and analogs to the real world, not just Web3. It is making sure that you own what you say you own before, you know, giving it away. So you could have signed contracts. I mean, if you have a ledger of the contracts you've signed, it's just important that you understand, okay, what rights I own. There's something in property law called a bundle of rights. So you really have to understand what bundle is actually mine, what bundle have I already given away, because you can't put something on the blockchain that you've already given away.
Awesome. We are running out of time, so if you guys have any last parting words, you can plug in your socials.
No, probably not. But
No.
I just want to I appreciate the conversation. Sincerely, actually appreciate people actually being here to listen. Yeah, no, this has been a great event. So thank you NFT.NYC, and appreciate y'all.
Right.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thank
NFT.
you so
NYC.
much, everyone. Thank you, Alec. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.